Hello everyone and welcome back to a Gran Turismo video, one that's slightly different as I always say, where it's more of a feature video or a discussion point, and this one is very much a discussion point. So car profiles, they are coming back to the channel and they are starting actually tomorrow, Bank Holiday Monday. However, I do need your help a little bit. Let me explain. So in the past with the car profiles, we originally started with 5 tracks, knocked it down to 3 tracks and did a bit of changing in there as we went through the year. Them because it does take a year plus to do all the car profiles, especially when we're doing group 4 and group 3 like we're going to be doing this time. So what are car profiles, first of all, for those that are a bit unsure? Car profiles, essentially what we do, we take a car, we have a look at the car, we test it on 3, 4, 5 different tracks. I'll explain the ones in a second because I've already chosen the tracks. We test it out, we find out the strengths of the car, the weaknesses of the car, we find out where it's best to change gear, is it any good on fuel, things like that. So then you can look at the car and go, actually, you know, that's not a bad car. Now, in the past, we have found some absolute dream cars when doing this. But, you know, back in GT Sport, we went through the Group 3 category, and we actually found some metas that nobody was using. So, for example, the Volkswagen convertible Group 3 car. Yes, the one, Ruthless Boy, as it's known. We found that to be one of the strongest cars in the game at the time, and no one was using it. And then suddenly a lot of people started using it. Peugeot RCZ wasn't necessarily a car profile, but I liked the RCZ. I tried it out at Suzuka, got a 157, and yeah, people started using that. Then it got nerfed. Happy days. The SLS, the Mercedes SLS, that was another big one that came out of the car profiles. So who knows what we might find this time, although obviously Gran Turismo is bigger than ever. There are more people doing content than ever, more people doing testing than ever. So maybe it's all been figured out. I don't know. But the idea of the car profiles is to give you all the information you need to pick the right cars that you want to use on the tracks that you want to race on. Very simple, really. And then you can use this, obviously, if you go into leagues, etc. You can go, okay, I want to use this track. This car, sorry. And then you go, okay, well, let me try out this car, or let me go see what Tidgney said about this car. Is it a car that suits my driving style? So, what we're going to do then, folks. So, the first one tomorrow is going to be the Viper. So, obviously, we did the Viper Beat the Meta video. Do make sure you check out that video either at the end of this one or by clicking the link in the comments if you're not really that interested in the car profiles. However, I'd recommend staying in touch here because I do need your opinion and advice here. And I've got about 24 hours before I do the car profile. So, picking tracks. This is the first big challenge I had to do. I had to go through all the tracks, absolutely every single track, and find out whether it was a high-speed track, a mid-speed track, or a low-speed track, because it's not logged anywhere on Gran Turismo, okay? It's not logged anywhere at all. It's kind of frustrating, to be honest with you. It really was frustrating, but I did it. I went through it, and yeah, got the job done, essentially. So, in the background, you're going to see some charts, etc. And I'm just going to talk about what we've chosen and why. And also some very weird track choices that Gran Turismo have made. So, first up, let's start off with the high-speed tracks, okay? So, some of these are very obvious. You know, Monza being a high-speed bop track makes perfect sense. Blue Moon Bay, infield B. Weirdly, not A, which is very interesting, but B, it has more straights, so it does make a bit of sense. You know, Circuit de la Sarthe is in there. St. Croix, C. Spa is a high-speed track, apparently. That was an interesting one. Daytona Road Course, that makes sense, obviously. High-speed ring. Bathurst, Nürburgring. That was an interesting one. I wasn't quite sure about that. It's a high-speed track, Nürburgring. Is it? Is it really? I mean, it's got the long straight at the end, obviously, but is it really a high-speed track? I'm not too sure about that. I've got to be honest, but the Gran Turismo classified it as that. Road Track A, Sardinia, of course. And then we have some of the Tokyo layouts, which they are high-speed, to be fair. Lots of straights. Lots of high-speed action there. So obviously, I had to pick one track from here, and I actually went with Bathurst, Mount Panorama. Why did I go for Mount Panorama? Well, first off, it's very hard to manipulate the times on Bathurst. So, you know, when I say manipulating times, Brands Hatch used to be a bop track or car profile track that I used to use, but you could obviously turn in a bit earlier on some sections and then it would lower the optimum time, and that's what we're going to be looking at is optimum time. We're going to look at all the fastest sectors, combine them to get the optimum time, because it's very much hard to get your absolute perfect lap. However, it's very much easier to get your perfect sectors, and we combine those sectors to get the perfect lap, the theoretical best lap, and that gives us an idea in terms of the car and where it lays in terms of the rankings. So we went with Bathurst there. Very, very, very high speed track. We've got 2 long straights on there. We've got the start finish straight as well. And then we've got the mountain section, of course, where it's all about power anyway. And you do have some turny bits, some corners in there, and very much we get to see a little bit about the car's reaction down the mountain as well. As we know, the dipper, very, 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 very easy to lose traction there and get oversteer. So it's a really good track actually, and it used to be one of the original 5. In fact, I got rid of that as one of the 5 just because it's a very long circuit. However, we're going to do the testing. So Mount Panorama, Bathurst is the high-speed track we've gone for. Let me go to the mid-speed tracks then, where the mid-speed is literally the majority of Gran Turismo, okay? Majority of Gran Turismo 7 tracks are mid-speed. And we are only looking at tracks here as well, not ovals or anything like that. So you can see them all in the background. It's as you expect here. Lots of tracks in there. Alsace test courses in there, which was a bit of a surprise because there's only a few corners on that. And it's very high speed in my opinion, but even so, they class it as mid. Just going down this list a little bit. Infield A, obviously that's quite a high speed circuit, but it's down as a mid speed in there. Some of St. Croix's circuits are in as mid speed, which did surprise me. I know C has the long straight, but A and B, they're still very fast circuits. They really are. You know, there's some really high-speed top-end stuff there. The corners are very high-speed as well. I would argue some of the most high-speed in the game. So, very surprising there. Dragon Trail Seaside, that was a big one for me. That is apparently a mid-speed, but I would have thought that was high-speed, if I'm brutally honest with you. I can't think of, like... I don't know how they would classify a mid versus high-speed circuit, in my opinion, because high-speed to me is doing corners like 120 plus. And there are lots of corners on Dragon Trail Seaside where you're doing that. So it's very surprising to me, but it could be the first sector that puts it down into mid-speed. I don't know how they classify these. But even so, going down there, there's some quite big ones on there. And there's some quite complex circuits on there as well. Road Atlanta, that I would argue is a perfect mid-speed track. You know, some of the Nürburgring, the actual circuit rather than a Nordschleife. That's down as mid-speed, which is unusual when the rest of the circuit is classed as high-speed and a Nordschleife. I'm surprised at that because to me, that I would argue the Nürburgring as a whole is a mid-speed circuit, a mid-bop track. But hey, they may change these in the future, and this will just ruin the car profiles. Then we'll have to adjust accordingly and retest where we need to retest. Anyway, long and short of it all, the circuit I went for the mid-speed is the one that was prolific in terms of the car profiles in the past. It's a Suzuka circuit. Okay, we're going with Suzuka in terms of the mid-speed. I think it's a very good circuit. It has some of those straights in there. It's got lots of corners in there. The S's are the perfect mid-bop, in my opinion, you know. They've got mid-speed corners there. You go through the S's. Very nice, and we should get a feel there in terms of the car as well. Of course, this is all classification. This is how they technically were going to do the bop. That's why there's 3 bops in here, the high, medium, and low. And we're going to go to low just now. So it's kind of interesting, to be honest with you, that the low, that they've classified so many as mid. So obviously that's their goal there, to get the mid right. And mid will be the hardest one to do, because in low, there's not very many tracks at all, if I'm brutally honest with you. Not very many tracks at all. So we've got Alsace Village in there. That was a big surprise to me. That, to me, is a high-speed circuit, not a low. I do not understand why the bop for Alsace Village is the way it is. That is a high-speed circuit. There's a couple of corners that are slow speed, but the rest are medium. I don't know. There's some real big top end in there, but I don't know how they classify this at all. We've got Lego Maggiore, Centre and East in there. Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Again, oh, mid to me. That is a more mid than a low-speed circuit. There's lots of fast right-handers in Brands Hatch. There really is. Maybe it's Sector 1 again. I don't know, because Indy is down as a low. Bizarre. Catalan National is a low. Some of the Sardinia tracks are B and C. C I'm a bit surprised about. B, definitely a low-speed track. Lots of complex corners in there. Makes perfect sense for that one. Tsukuba. Laguna Seca, that was an interesting one. And believe it or not, actually, Laguna Seca is the track I've chosen. I was torn here between Tsukuba and Laguna. Now, because we're doing Group 3, I went with Laguna. If I was just doing Group 4, I'd probably just pick Tsukuba. But Tsukuba... it's very close, very tight. A Group 3 car is going to do that in under a minute. Is it going to show advantages, disadvantages to cars? I'm not so sure. Laguna Seca, more varied there in terms of the fact it's got the low speed in there. It's got some of the kinks in there. It's got the weight transfer at the corkscrew, of course. So I do think Laguna Seca is probably the best low-speed track out of that lot. And do let me know if you have any different opinions there as well, okay? So that is all the circuits combined. I am going to put this somewhere so that you have access to all this information, but you saw all the charts there as well. So we're going to go through. We're going to do basically 10 laps on these circuits. Okay, so it's going to be 10 laps at Bathurst, 10 laps at Suzuka, and 10 laps at Laguna Seca. It's going to be on ×1 fuel and tyre wear as well. Now, the reason I've done that, this is a very interesting choice, and let me know your opinions on this as well, is that Gran Turismo always does ×1 fuel and tyre wear now in all 3 races. So that tells me they're doing the BOP based on that. And the race feel as well makes me feel like that, especially doing beat the metas in terms of the Audi TT and the Dodge Viper. When there's no tyre wear and fuel, the cars feel really weird. But when you have that fuel and tyre wear in, suddenly it makes a bit more sense and it handles a bit better. So we're going to do the BOP with ×1 fuel and tyre wear. It may be a case that we have to restart halfway through. I've not done the testing on this. This is just theoretical. And I will let you know of any updates with the first car profile we do, which is of course going to be the Dodge Viper. Why am I only doing 10 laps? Well, I will have learnt the car from Beat the Meta. That is the whole idea of progressing from Beat the Meta to have a car profile to give you the full understanding of the car, okay? So literally, we will have been racing the car all week. We'll have already found its strengths and weaknesses, so we can jump straight into these other tracks, really just try the car out there, and then give you those optimum times and a ranking essentially for that car in the class at the time. So in terms of tires and fuel, I will get my words out there. The fuel is an easy one. We've already done a fuel video. If you haven't seen that, it's well worth checking out actually. Okay, so we want to test the fuel usage of these cars. When we do the Manufacturers and Nations Cup, the multipliers are not staying at ×1. Even in Daily Race C, it's normally ×2, 3, 4, can go up as high as ×10 and 15. We've seen that in the past. We do need to test this out. I'll start with fuel. Fuel, we're going to do a very similar test to my fuel video. So we're going to special stage Route X for the fuel, okay? Now you're probably going to be like, Tidge, we've got high, medium, and low speed. Don't you have to do it on all? Arguably yes and arguably no. So the way you save fuel in a car doesn't really vary based on the BOP, okay? It'll vary slightly because engine power will reduce or increase depending on the BOP. However, in reality, overall, the way the car drives and the way the car can save fuel is not going to change that much. So special stage Route X. All ovals are high speed, by the way, if you didn't know that. They're all high speed, which means the oval BOP has gone, which I did not realize. So we're going to jump into special stage Route X. We're going to do the same test as the fuel video, okay? We're going to do max performance based on the gear change of the car. So for example, some cars are 3/4 shift. So that's where we will change gear in that car because that's where you get maximum performance. If it's a full rev, absolutely revving the nuts out of the car, we'll rev the nuts out of the car. And then what we do is we log the distance it runs out the fuel and we log the time it took to do that distance as well. Now, this is where it gets a bit complicated. So then what we're going to do is test the fuel saving of the car, which is something fairly new in terms of this test. And we're going to be changing it 25% of the bar. Now, the reason I'm doing the bar is because people use different cameras. If you use bonnet cam, interior cam, etc., you may not see the rev range. So we're going to just use the bar as the gear change there. So 25% on that. And basically do the same test up to the distance we ran out of fuel on the maximum performance. This, again, is when we're going to log the time it took to get there, which measures performance of the car. How much performance does it lose short shifting? As we've seen with the Ferrari, for example, short shifting, you lose very little time, but you can save a lot of fuel. So actually, that's a very good fuel-saving car, and it's one of my go-to cars, as you know, in terms of fuel saving. So this is to see that performance difference. And then we're also going to see the fuel level. So how good was it with the short shifting? Did we save a lot of fuel compared to the maximum performance of the car? Essentially, if we save a lot of fuel but don't lose very little time, it's a very good fuel-saving car. You may want to use that in a fuel-saving race in the future. If it loses a lot of time and you don't really save that much fuel, the car's pretty rubbish at fuel saving, and you want to avoid that like anything. You do not want to touch that car at all in terms of fuel-saving race. We're also going to do a third test. Now, this is the fuel map test. Now, fuel map, if you don't know, limits the power at the engine and essentially looks to save more fuel. Now, we categorically know, it's a scientific fact in terms of Gran Turismo. Fuel map is the worst way to save fuel in Gran Turismo, okay? If you're using fuel map, then you are also short shifting with fuel map. So the idea of this test is we're going to do fuel map 3 and the 25% shift and just see how much fuel we really do save when we really have to, and then log the same time and the fuel level at that same distance we ran out at maximum performance, okay? We take all that, we put it together, and we show you the difference there on whether it's a good fuel saver or not. And it's just a nice little chart there for the car and some information for the car. Okay, and we'll put a ranking system together in terms of best fuel savers, not good fuel savers, and things like that. That's the reason why we're testing fuel map 3 at 25%, is because you only use fuel maps where you're short shifting already and it's still not enough. If you're using fuel map in any other way, obviously I know automatic drivers are going to be a bit different with that, but I would argue, and I really would push you to start learning manual. It's the best way. It's that you are going to increase your performance massively if you do in terms of fuel saving. Okay, so that's the reason why we're testing this. Now you could go, oh, well, if that's fuel map, then it helps the automatic. It would, but we've got 1,000 things we could test here, and obviously it's all got to fit into a nice little video that you can watch. Maybe it's 8-10 minutes long, and you can go, right, okay, I want to use this car. Oh, I don't want to use this car. I want to give you factual, precise information that you can take away and be like, nice. Now, let's get into the problem here. Tyre wear test. Now, tyre wear now is more complicated than it's ever been in Gran Turismo, because in GT Sport, for those that didn't know, it's based on weight, essentially. So as you brake, if you've got a lot of weight in the car, you'll use more tyre wear. If you brake at 75%, then you'll use less tyre wear, etc. But it's all based on weight. So a car that's very light and can 100% brake would wear the tyres less than the car that was very heavy and doing 75% braking. Essentially, that's the idea anyway. Well, that's what the idea they had. It's not like that anymore, as you will have seen in a recent live stream at Nations Cup where I tried everything and it didn't really work very well at all. So we're going to give you, obviously, the, I say me, I'm going to give you the car weight information, of course, and the power percentage it's currently got when I do the test. I can't think of a test, and this is where I really need your help, if there is a test we can do. I can't think of a test that really works for tyre testing because of, well, we've got driving style changes. My driving style will be very different to your driving style, and therefore my tyre test results may be very different to your tyre test results. Controller type. The controller suffers way more with tyre wear than it does on a steering wheel. Again, how can I test this? I can't really test this in any way. I might get very good tyre wear on the steering wheel, but because you can't turn as much on the controller, maybe it causes significantly more in one car than it does in another car. The test then is a bit failed, in my opinion. Right, anyway, and in the end as well with the tyre testing, the BOP. There are 3 BOPs. The car weight is going to vary between the BOPs. So let's just say you go, well, can't you just go out and test it on 1? Then I'd have to test it on 3. And again, adding in the driving style, the controller types, what happens if I lock the brakes on 1 test, etc. Say lock the brakes, just brake heavily a bit too much in 1 test. It's going to get very difficult. And as you apply that multiplier, so let's do, say I do a times 25. If I just get the braking wrong once, that's going to impact the entire tyre test. And I can't think of a way to tyre wear test effectively, other than people providing feedback in that way. If you can think of a tyre wear test that works, do let me know in the comments. I'm always interested in terms of your feedback and your opinions. And what's your opinion on this overall test? I think it's going to work quite well. Wow, this is a long video at 18 minutes. So we are going to look to end the video right here. But do let me know your opinion on this car profile test. I'm going to give it 24 hours and then I'm going to jump on to the Viper and get the first car profile done and give you all the information you need, because I've already seen a couple of comments where they've said, I should have done this, I should have done that. I've tested the Viper thoroughly already in terms of beat the meta, and I do understand the car quite a bit. So we have different opinions, and those different opinions will show in that car profile. So then you can go, okay, maybe I should try this, maybe I should try that. That's the whole idea. And that is the end of this video, folks. Very different one, obviously, with me talking to the camera. No real action in the background, but it gives you information about how the car profiles are going to work in the future. And yeah, be prepared for them. They are going to come, and they're going to come thick and fast as well. So hopefully some more content for you to enjoy. That's it for me, folks. If you did like it, give it a like. Subscribe to the channel to stay in touch with all the latest content, including these car profiles that are about to come up. They are very interesting. Trust me. Believe me. They are very good. But as I say, that is it for me. Thank you once again for watching. Thank you for all your support and helping with the journey to 40,000 subscribers. I hope to see you in another video or live stream again very soon.